learn to improve conversions and generate more leads with the video podcast at marketingoptimization.tv. Hi, and welcome to Marketing Optimization with Alex Science. I'm your host, Alex Harris, and today we're chatting with Laura from digitalflash.com. How you doing, Laura?
Hey, Alex, how's it going?
Excellent. Today we're talking, a little bit about, marketing in general, but we're going to just jump right into it. Laura, what would be your definition of optimization and why is it beneficial?
Well, I think optimization is so important when trying to find out the best ways to get things done efficiently wherever you are in your company. So, perfect example is optimizing when you're going through the growing pains of having your business, where you're at a good point and you think you're doing really well, and then of course you get that, oh, now what do we do? Okay, we've had a lot of good success. We've now kind of grown our team. And okay, but now we've got those ebbs and flows, and how do you sort of figure all that stuff out? And it's been interesting for us. We're kind of about 4 years into the company now, and we've kind of hit that point for this past quarter, this past summer, where it's like, all right, we're in a good spot, but now we're getting those growing pains of like being grown-ups in business. And what we've been able to kind of figure out is that the first thing is to sort of accept that that's going to happen, that it's never always going to be sunshine and lollipops. Once you've hit a matter of success, you can't just look at it, I can just sit back and relax. But now it's like, okay, reflect. Like, what did we do to kind of get this to this good spot, and how will that help us to get to the next spot? And yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I know, because I've certainly seen it myself. It's harder to even market your own business anymore on the web, and it does come down to relationships, and you do hit these plateaus. So, what do you do to kind of break through to kind of get to that next level of your agency?
I think the first thing to do is to sort of look around with your peers and talk to your peers. I think, as much as we do so much amazing things online, that kind of getting the offline is actually really important when trying to figure out how to get past those humps by talking to your colleagues in the industry and saying, hey, what are you seeing out in the industry? What have you seen that's kind of interesting? Doing a lot more research and reading and looking about, okay, well, what's happening in a different market? So we're in New York, so I would say, hey, what's happening in Boulder? Let's take a look and see. I've been reading some interesting things about happening in Boulder. Let's maybe find some folks out there, talk to them, hear what's going on in their marketplace. Because oftentimes when we're in business, we sort of kind of get that tunnel vision where it's only in our little small world and everything is happening so quickly, and forget that there's a big world out there that people do things a lot differently at a different speed and are learning different ways. And you can learn from your peers across the country who can kind of give you that kind of guidance. And then I think it's also really important to have the sort of good mentors, senior level people who you've kind of come across in the past, whether you have relationships or you sort of seek those folks out. So whether it's finding a mentoring roundtable, whether it's kind of going to some previous bosses and saying, hey, what's been your experience when you've had this happen to you? And then take the honest feedback. I know oftentimes as a woman business owner, it's often that you can't talk to men because we're women and we're supposed to be able to do it all on our own, and that is ridiculous. It's much more about taking feedback from everyone who you like and respect. I mean, we first started the company, our first advisors were my current boss, one of his good friends, and a friend that Sarah's had since high school, all guys. And, we're really into sort of, hey, kind of giving us some good advice and saying, we've seen this in the marketplace. You guys might want to try this. By the way, take your medicine first when thinking about all the tough decisions you have to make and not putting that stuff off until the latter. And we've kind of held a lot of that stuff along the way as we've grown the business, where same deal, talking to our peers, talking to our friends, talking to people who we respect and say, we're at this sort of growing point. What do we have to do? And for us, I think it's very important that when you're looking at the universe, you're not in this alone. And I think talking to other business owners as well and saying, hey, what are you seeing? What's happening in the industry for you? And it's not that you're sort of saying, oh, I'm failing. I can't get past, but I need to learn from other people, because I think when you have your own business, it's so very important that you don't forget that you're not an island, and that it's about, there's people out there that you can reach out to. There are people out there that you can contact, and we're all in this kind of thing together, and not being afraid of that.
Yeah. because I know, I do a lot of, e-commerce work and website design, and a lot of people say, oh, do you worry about, interviewing your competition? I'm like, I really don't have any competition. The only competition I really have is myself. The more you can collaborate with other people, it just, it builds your network. You have so many more opportunities. And before we jumped onto the call, we were talking about conferences and stuff that you do with like South by Southwest. Give us a little bit of overview of what Digital Flash does, and how you incorporate conferences and offline marketing.
Sure. So Digital Flash is a digital experience agency. And what that means is that we're storytellers online and offline. And we make sure that whatever we build has those two components together. So whether we're building a social campaign online, we want to create an offline experience that you can actually physically attend and be like, this is amazing. I want to Instagram this. I want to tell my friends. So that information goes back online. That tells the story again. So you sort of create this nice loop of conversation for a brand, a startup, whoever we're working with. And what we often say is that conferences and networking is the key to your success. I mean, literally, we eat our own dog food. Sarah and I, my business partner, met through networking. We literally happened to both be at a breakfast event, and we were chit-chatting. We got thrown together to participate in this event and kind of realized, hey, this is interesting. Maybe we want to give it a whirl and become a small business, and we kind of went for it. So it's one, not being afraid to sort of go out those things, either go alone, go with a friend, and go for it and meet people. Really good, easy icebreakers. I have a very simple way of doing this. Even if you don't drink, grab whatever bottle of water, fruit juice, glass of wine it is, and stand by the bar. Wait. Somebody will come by, and you can say, hey, what brings you here? Easy icebreaker. And you never know who that person is going to be. It could be someone who's an intern. It could be someone who's going to be a peer. It could be someone who's a potential client, or someone who could refer you to a potential client. Like, having that openness is so very important when you're going out there. And again, as I said, not being afraid to sort of just say, hey, how's it going? 9 times out of 10, someone's going to say something back. Unless you run into someone who's evil, you're gonna get someone to actually kind of give you that good feedback. So that's the first thing I always say, like, just walk by the bar. Or the other thing is, I call it the loop, where it's like, take that drink, and once you've been there for a couple of seconds and you've met a couple of people, walk the loop of wherever the conference, networking event you may be at, and just kind of go by the wine and cheese, grab a couple of nibbles. Again, you don't have to eat everything, but people congregate in your food, and when people see other people congregating in your food, just by common behavior, like, oh, what brings you here? What we often do is, whenever we build something, say for South by Southwest, we always sort of make sure that it's an event where you feel like our house is your house. So from the events that we do for our small networking events, we host them. Sarah and I are the moderators. We make sure that everyone in the audience is able to ask a question right away. Like, don't wait until the end of the event where you've probably forgotten what you were going to ask, and then you're like, oh, and then the person is ducked out, and you haven't got a chance to ask your question. We're like, hey, our house is your house. You guys feel the way that you have a question, go for it. And it's kind of born out of the thing where when I would go to events and conferences, the things that really annoyed me were no one would talk to each other. The people who were on the panel always kind of seemed kind of pompous, and they were kind of quick to get out of the way. And I have to ask my question all the way at the end. And I'm like, oh, I hate that. So when we set out to build events, and whether we do them for ourselves or we do them for clients, we sort of infuse in whatever we do that it's about the people and the relationships that you're going to have at this event. And so it should feel chill. It should feel good. So, and I think that is something that, I'll say that we don't see as often as we'd like, but, it's a way that you can sort of make that happen for yourself. Where if you kind of go in with the attitude of, hey, I'm just going to meet 3 people tonight. That's my goal. So whether I go by the bar, whether I go by the elevator, whether I go right up to after the panel, I'm going to go out and meet some people at this event, grab 3 business cards, and then take those business cards and go have coffee with people. I think I've gone on about 1,000 wine and coffees over the last 4 years in building the business. And that's not hyperbole, because literally we just go out, meet people. Hey, what are you up to? At that point, we didn't have a business. It's like, let's meet, have coffee. You never know who you might be. And some of those people have become our interns, some people have become our clients, become our friends, and just good colleagues and good people to know. And I think not that's the most important thing when you're at these events is that it should be about the relationships that you can really make, and not to shy away from that. I think is of tantamount importance.
Well, I think it's really a great point because I know me, going through my career. I mean, going to local meetups, starting with local meetups, and then eventually South by Southwest, and all the different conferences I've gone to. I've built certainly some amazing friendships, some partnerships, I've gotten clients that way. And till this day, when I first started going to South by Southwest in 2007, I still hang out with a lot of those same people at different conferences today. Gary Vee, Chris Brogan. Probably a lot of people that people know, but it's those online relationships that you really want to take offline and really that you can really cater, because it does come down to relationships in the long run, because your network is going to be around forever for sure. And you mentioned storytelling, so let's dig into how you market storytelling. What would be some top tips in your marketing practice of how you tell the story right and some of those different experiences that you create?
So yeah, I think one of the best ways about telling storytelling is to sort of understand what you're trying to achieve. Is the story going to be, I have a business, we've bootstrapped it. It's about our business partners, but it's about the fact that we built this community. How do I figuring out exactly what the story needs to be is the first step in storytelling, because if you don't believe it and it's not authentic, that story is not going to be able to go anywhere. It needs to have that element of, what do you stand for when you're telling that story? So that's kind of step one. Step two, you want to look at the landscape and say, okay, everyone else is sort of being fluffy or not really true about what they really want. You want to dig in and kind of get to that like really core sentence, like what do we do? And it should be a sentence. It should not be a paragraph. It should be that core sentence. And it's, a good way to sort of try to figure that out is kind of doing a brainstorming exercise where, you put down some words. Great tip I learned a long time ago is sort of doing it either on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper. And, and maybe the board could be, fashion. And I put the word fashion there. And then around that, I'm going to start putting out words that what it means to me, what it doesn't mean to me, kind of peripheral words. And so that helps me sort of begin to craft that sentence. And, and then what you start doing is narrowing it down, because you've now got all these words on the table. You start circling the words. When you think of fashion for you or for your business, I think of X. Or if your business is, car companies, or if it's your, middle manager at a brand, it's your Oreos. Okay, what are these other words that sort of begin to really hone in on what it is we want to say about this particular brand? And then again, another aspect you can do is start writing those on index cards. So get some index cards and start putting those words together to try and form out a sentence. And it may not be your typical subject, noun, and verb, but it's going to help you get to that sentence. And then start kind of paring it down, and you will get to that kind of core sentence that is what you stand for. And then the best part about this is you got to actually say it out loud, because you may write it down and you're like, this looks amazing, best sentence ever. And then you say it like, I don't believe this. This is some marketing gobbledygook. But saying it out loud, saying it like 1 and 2 and 3 times, and hearing yourself saying it and say, okay, this is something I authentically believe, that is when you hit the line for that story. Because it comes off your tongue very softly. It doesn't feel like you're forcing it because your boss thinks you have to say this, or you think everyone is saying this in the industry, so that's what you want to say. But it feels right. I think that's the way that you really kind of hone and craft and help you get to that story. And it will take a while. Like, we've had many iterations as kind of figuring out how to hone down on our message in Digital Flash, and it has been a struggle. We have been a consultancy, we have been renegades, we've been ninjas, we've been your mercenaries. to get to the line of saying we're a digital experience agency has taken years. And a lot of these exercises. And oftentimes when you're running your business, you're so busy on focused on making your business successful that it's hard for you to kind of take a step back and tell your story. But it's so important that you do that. One of the ways we also were able to kind of finally get to our story was to have a friend who's not a disinterested party, but someone who's not me or my business partner sit down with us and talk through the lines that we had and kind of say, well, why are you guys saying that? Like, honestly, like, that's not who you guys are. When I see you guys in the marketplace, that's not who I think you guys are. Getting that honest feedback. Because again, it's going to be it's an effort. It's not you alone on an island, but it takes a village with regard to helping you tell and craft good stories. But once you get there and you feel in your gut, you're like, I got this, that's when you know you're good to go.
Yeah. Well, I really like this. I mean, this is optimization at its core. I mean, you're always trying to really find what differentiates your products that you're trying to sell. And I know I was actually just on a call with an e-commerce company, and they're trying to sell apparel. And I'm like, people want to buy nice clothes, of course, but they actually are buying your story. They're buying the culture that you're trying to create. And I was telling them, like, think about like Tom's shoes. People, buy Tom's shoes, but they're buying the story of giving that other pair of shoes to charity. So, as whatever, a website owner or a marketer, you have to really figure out, what's going to, relate to your core audience, and then, create a story from that for sure.
Yeah, it's really about the authenticity. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I would say that as I've gotten older, the storytelling matters way more to me now when I'm buying products than it did, I want to say, like 10, 15 years ago. Like 10, 15 years ago, all I wanted to do was when I made enough money, I was going to buy a Louis Vuitton bag or buy a pair of buy a pair of Jimmy Choos. And now I find myself buying like these very kind of different, cool brands that, aren't your kind of commercially large brands, but I love the story behind it. Like my iPad case is from Pad and Quill. And they have the most amazing story about how they hand make all of their iPad cases. And the reason why I was attracted, because I read the blog post story about it first. And I was like, really? A husband and wife making handcrafted leather iPad cases? This is fascinating. And I'm willing to pay a premium for that. So I think that's a really important thing about storytelling, that when you tell your story right, you will get the price that you really want for the products you were trying to sell, because the people who hear and really get that story are willing to pay a premium for that because they know it's quality, they know it's something unique, they know it's something different. And as I'm saying, it's like showing your vulnerabilities in terms of like, look, it is not always going to be perfect. These things are going to have imperfections. We are building from the ground up. I mean, look, we don't have a business plan. I went to business school. I didn't write a business plan for my company. But part of the reason is that we were figuring it out on the fly. And, we're always honest about the fact, hey, listen, we are still trying to figure it out. This is kind of where we sit right now. But the most important thing we can always say is that authentically, this is who we are. And this is authentically who this brand is. And people see that and people respect that. And I think that often is the way that you will be able to get your customers. But I'm sure as well, like, people will want to be your client because they want to have a beer with you. You exude that level of confidence. You want to have that, like, I'm going for this. I'm making this thing on my own. And this is why I think it's going to be really good if we work together, blah, 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 blah. You want to always exude that. And I think that's really important when you're telling those stories, that you have that passion to it. It's not just like, I'm just sort of telling you how great we are because it's going to be awesome. But like, no, here's why. We're doing this. We're going to make this awesome.
Mm-hmm. So now let's move into maybe some specific tips that you would take the story and then apply it maybe to content marketing or Pinterest or whatever type of marketing material that maybe a marketing manager would want to try for themselves. What would be some of the aspects of putting that story together online?
I think the first thing is to sort of know what your tools are. So there's a tremendous amount of freemium tools, expensive tools, semi-expensive tools. So figuring out what your good content tools are going to be for your distribution. So are you a brand that needs to be on every single platform? Does it make sense for your authentically, if you sell, Caterpillar trucks. Do you really need to be on Pinterest? Probably not. But could you be on Instagram talking about, how these are made, zoom ins on the tires, zoom ins on the engines? Is there a Rebel Mouse page that, shows really interesting backstory of like how long we've been in business, surprising uses for these particular kinds of products? Like that's the first thing. It's like, because there's such a plethora of things that you could be doing, but you really want to hone in on the kind of top, maybe 3 to 5 platforms that make sense for you from a content marketing set of circumstances. Number 2, you want to optimize how you're going to be able to push that content out. So is it something that you're going to be able to dedicate 2 to 3 hours a day to, 2 to 3 hours a week, 2 or 3 hours every other month? Figuring out what that's going to be. So figuring out what your timing is going to be, and then using tools that will enable you to do that. So for example, we're enterprise level Hootsuite customers so that we can schedule tweets ahead of time. We also use their Uber views so that we're tracking all of the messaging that's coming out from, historically from the day that we start the campaign all the way through, so that we can sort of see where the sentiment's going to be. Are people liking this? Are people not liking this? And then being able to change on the fly. I mean, one of the awesome things about having the digital world versus being in print is that you can change on the fly. You can A/B test. You can kind of see what's going back, what's working, what's not working. What could I tweak to maybe make this language even better, or what could I tweak to maybe not get the response I'm getting? So that's the next step. And then 2, I think it's listening to what people say with the content that you're putting out, and not taking that as an offense. It's like, very much take your kind of personal affront out of it and say, all right, cool. All right, you guys are liking X, Y, and Z that we're talking about. We're getting a lot of engagement around this. Perfect example. So we have a client that's a speaker company. And so, headphone speakers, you kind of think young millennials, they're the folks who are going to be totally into it. The biggest surprise we have had with this has been that kind of middle-aged rockers, kind of folks who would probably be friends of Jerry Garcia and the like, Deadheads, old school rockers, love these speakers and headphones, like to a degree that we would never have found. And the only reason was we kind of did it was like, well, let's just give it a whirl. You never know. I mean, like, because the maker of the speakers, we went after his audience. He's an older guy. He's in his 50s. And we're like, yeah, well, let's talk to some people who'd be like, be like Dave, the founder. And we have seen the most crazy response by this audience. And so what we've done and what we've been able to do is now take great photographs around those types of audiences. We've gotten some great endorsements from those folks, and we're pushing out great, and the ad results in terms of sales has been spectacular. Because again, no one talks to this audience. We had no idea. But if we hadn't kind of thought about the universe that we were looking at and said, hey, one of the audiences that we're probably not tapping into is the audience of the guy who actually designed this company. He's not alone. He loves live music. There's probably folks just like him who love live music. Let's give it a whirl. And if it didn't work, we're like, okay, well, if we do a couple posts and nothing responds, we can totally take it down and go back to kind of going after the young music-loving folks that we thought would be our ideal audience. And so I think that's also really important with regard to having that. So it's one, first of all, once you figure out your story, figuring out what your tools are going to be. 2, getting all the right tools in place, and making investments. Like we would say that content marketing isn't free at the end of the day. And I think that's kind of something that folks don't want to admit. They're like, oh, you're still just putting up tweets or putting Instagram posts. It's work. It's work. There's a science, but there's an art and a science to that. And I think that's probably one of the most important things I can also say is that it is an art and a science. You have to write really well. But you also have to figure out the science of when this post is going to go up to get the most engagement. And then how do I tweak as accordingly? So should I be putting these posts up on the West Coast at this time, on the East Coast at this time? Should I make this ad maybe a little bit more friendly to this audience because during this part of the week, they're more apt to read it because it's hump day on Wednesday. They might read this at 11 o'clock versus Thursday at 4 o'clock. They're kind of getting ready to go out for Thursday night because they're on the East Coast. Doing all that is a science. And so that takes time and money. So it's accepting that's going to cost you some money, accepting that you're going to have to spend some money on media to also boost your content marketing. Again, content marketing is fantastic, and it's a great way to get your message out, but it's still going to require media to push that forward, because with Facebook changing their algorithm, Instagram now having sponsored posts, Pinterest coming along the way with that next, native advertising being, the end all be all for many people, you still have to be able to tell your stories in those particular types of media in smart ways, and then that will drive the content from wherever it's originally deriving from. And that's of paramount importance, that you pay attention to that and you tweak along the way.
Yeah, it's that iterative process to really, tweak, as you said, A/B test, try different things, try different times, and then you might find out that you're marketing to different personas than you originally started at the beginning. And it happens so often. I go into a project, I think I'm marketing to this specific ideal audience. They wear this product, wear that product. It ends up that the mother is buying a daughter their present, so you need to be marketing to an older generation or whatever it is. So really, digging into that is some really great advice in the optimization. So let's tell people how they can find out more about Digital Flash and you in general.
Cool. So you can find out about Digital Flash at digitalflash.com. You can find us on social channels at DFlashNYC. And then for me, you can find me at LMIGNO on pretty much every social channel. It's L Mignot. That's how you say my name, but not how you spell my name. And if you guys are ever in New York, happy to have a coffee with you. Like I said, I really do mean that. I'm always about meeting new and interesting people, and happy to jump on a call, have a coffee, have a glass of wine, and a big Brickmont rosé. Apparently in New York there's a shortage, allegedly. But yeah, I think I'm very much open to always meeting folks and hearing what folks are up to, and just learning and meeting new people, because I think that's the way that we're all successful.
What is one thing that optimizers can really do to take their marketing to the next level?
Good question. I think if you're looking to optimize and really take it to the next level, it's not of being afraid to take some investments and really spending the money wisely to get you to that next level. Because as great as your strategy may be, as great as the content may be, it's going to need some degree of capital to help you get to that next level. So that capital could be, as I said, a media buy. It may be having to build a customized event that's not just a typical run-of-the-mill little coffee deal. It's going to have to be a statement kind of stunt that gets the right people in the room, who are then going to Instagram and tweet about being at this really cool event. That's all investment. But what ends up happening, and what's good about having this world of content and social, is that because you spend that money in that initial investment, it's going to amplify and grow exponentially. And that, when you look at it at the end of the day, will pale into the comparison to the investment you would have made if you had said you had bought a TV commercial. Because that ongoing circle of that longer tail of all that content of people talking about your great experience and how cool your brand is, or whatever you are doing. I mean, we've done it too. Like we've done a lot of this where we all right, let's just make the investment in making this happen. So maybe our client doesn't want to do this, so maybe we'll put the money in and say, okay, you know what? At the end of the day, we know that this will be a success. And no one's saying you need to spend $1 million. No one's saying you need to spend $500,000. But say, figuring out a way to spend a little bit of additional money, a little bit of additional capital to take that one step further, to make that bigger investment in what you really want to achieve, will help you get there. And not being afraid of that. Just spend your dollars wisely, very, very wisely. And look at the marketplace and kind of say, all right, it makes sense to do an event. It makes sense to maybe hold a custom contest online. It makes sense to maybe hire some influencers to be a part of a campaign that I'm going to be using. And saying, you know what, I'm going to make the investment, because at the end of the day, it's going to put me in a much better position. So I think that's probably the honest truth about what you really have to do to kind of get that next level.
Yeah, well, you can only be on your own island for so long before you have to pay for a little bit of, investment to really get to that next level. I think it's great advice. Thanks a lot for your time. Thank you for watching the Marketing Optimization Podcast with Alex Designs. Please remember to subscribe to all of the videos in my YouTube channel. Thank you.